Good morning, and the property angels are back because it's 9 a.m. on a Thursday morning. And as you know, the property angels are myself, Karen Stanbridge, Sarah Smith, and Sam Beddoe. And before we get started, we'd just briefly like to introduce ourselves, and then Sam will be introducing our fabulous guest, Alec Smith. So let me start by introducing Sarah. So Sarah, if you'd like to say a few words about yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us again this morning. My name is Sarah Smith, and I bought my first property in 2004 to live in. So very much an accidental landlord was my start in property. And every time I moved property, which was roughly every 2 years, my broker said, you can keep that property and it will pay for itself, the rent will pay the mortgage, and you can also buy this next one. So I did that about 4 times before I thought, this property thing, something quite interesting. So I was working as a solicitor in London and carried on purchasing property relatively slowly, to be honest. Got into HMOs in about 2012, and they became my exclusive focus for the next 5 years, I'd say. So when I was earning more from property than I was from my job as a solicitor, I said goodbye to that, and I've been full-time in property since 2016. I've done lots of bits and pieces in property, as lots of us have. I've had a rent-to-rent company with Sam Beddoe here. That was about 5 years ago. We had that, time has flown. I owned an estate agency, Home Hub Southampton, which I started with John Patrick in 2016. Sold my shares in that last year. In terms of actual property strategies, mainly single lets, as I say, then focusing on HMOs, but also done other things like flips, title splits, and other bits and pieces. So at the moment, I'm just focusing on building my portfolio and doing enjoyable things like this, and also last year. In terms of actual property strategies, I think someone's playing something, are they? Okay. And also host Partners in Property Southampton with these 2 lovely ladies. So that's me. Sam?
Hi there, my name's Sam Beddoe. After 23 years as a detective in the police force, I was forced to be a property investor full-time. Sarah said we've had some businesses together where we've done rent-to-rents, HMOs, title splits, auctions, flips, those sort of things. I've also done other businesses. So I have a serviced accommodation business and a property development business. I've got a couple of properties that are going through at the moment in the development business. And I have a non-property business. So I keep myself quite busy. And as Sarah said, also co-host Partners in Property in Southampton with Karen and Sarah. That's about me.
Brilliant. And I'll just jump in and quickly introduce myself. So as I said earlier, my name's Karen Stanbridge, and I originally started life as an accountant. The thing is, somebody has to, right? And I did okay with that, but it just wasn't me. So I escaped that land and I moved on to work in project and program management and strategic business consultancy in big blue chip industry. I exited that world at the start of May 2015, starting to craft several businesses around the property arena. So I have a business consultancy business, a land assembly business, and generally an asset holding business. So I'm continuing to grow those, as well as helping to craft other property professionals' strategic plans so they start from safe foundations. And as Sam and Sarah have mentioned, co-host Partners in Property with these 2 lovely ladies. So I'd now like to hand back to Sam so she can introduce our fabulous guest.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, so we have with us today Alec Smith. We've known you, Karen, Sarah and I have known you for quite a number of years within our sort of local communities. And you've got a couple of businesses, Alec, haven't you? So rather than me try and explain what they are all about, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about where you are with property and what your business is all about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Sam. Firstly, yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's good to be here and see you all. So yeah, I started. I mean, I've kind of worked for myself or had my own businesses full time since 2005, and it was my main consultancy business. I have an environmental land and building sort of surveying company, Artisan Surveyors, although soon to be Artisan Environmental. We're currently looking at a lot of growth plans through this year to grow the business, and as part of that kind of growth and development, we're sort of rebranding and changing the name to Artisan Environmental, and just feel that it fits better. It's a better sort of suited name to the services that we offer and what we help clients with. And that side of the business is got really kind of taken off, despite having been running that for 15 years. Up until a couple of years ago, it was really sort of a lifestyle business. I only had sort of chopped and changed up between sort of three to four staff. And over that last couple of years, we've taken the decision to sort of really kind of grow the business, and so we've doubled the size up to 8 staff now, and are really kind of expanding kind of what we do. So historically, it's always been very focused on asbestos surveys. That's kind of the key part of the business. But we've just brought in a new or relatively new sector in contaminated lands. So we brought in a specialist in that area in-house. It's already something that we help clients with. It's asbestos kind of comes into to sort of obviously building through to like land contamination, but bringing in those other elements of the land contamination into that. So things like sort of metals and PCBs and things and toxins in soils through to oil. Also things like knotweed and kind of anything that comes under the legislation as a contaminant. So that's kind of one business, or my main business alongside property. But I did start in property around the same time. So my first kind of small flip, like sort of refurb, was in slightly after starting Artisan, so later in 2005, and since then have been doing or involved in investments and developments in property kind of ever since, alongside Artisan, as well as kind of various other sort of constantly coming up with new ideas and sort of things that kind of evolve and develop. So sort of during that time as well, I've had an architectural design company. So we did sort of drawings and planning permission, planning applications for people, which was called Artisan Design. So it was kind of a bolt on to Artisan Surveyors. Did that for a couple of years. And also had a building company, Wheeler's Construction, for 3 years. So I was quite heavily involved in construction of various things. I mean, actually, the first thing that we did in that was really good sort of new builds. It was a design and build timber frame golf clubhouse for a private college. So it was a fantastic project to do and be involved with. It had BREEAM that we had to comply with. Very, very involved on the design elements and kind of a lot went into it, and it was a really good project to get our teeth into, and learned an awful lot sort of from that about construction and everything through from the planning process, building regs through to all of the construction processes, and then that followed on in everything that I did sort of as part of managing that company and doing building work for other people. But I took the decision a couple of years ago that I was spreading myself too thin between Artisan's, the surveying and consultancy company, running that as well as doing my own property stuff and having the building company. So I sold the building company, and now I'm focusing on growing the consultancy to then really allow me to focus on property investing and developing, which is something that I really love.
Okay. So it sounds like you've still got your feet in 2 different fields at the moment. So how much time do you give to property at the moment, and how much would you like that to be?
Yeah, so I think with where we've got quite aggressive growth plans with Artisan at the moment, I'm heavily involved with that. I mean, when going back a couple of years to where it was more lifestyle, I wasn't spending much time at all. It was ticking on, my staff were doing a great job sort of managing it at a level with one full-time surveyor, and it was ticking along sort of nicely. So I was had a lot of time to put into property and other things. But over the last kind of year to, well, 18 months to 2 years, where we are looking at growing Artisan, it has taken up a lot more of my time. So I'd say probably the split very, very kind of roughly has been sort of 4 days a week on Artisan and the business development of Artisan, and kind of a day a week on property, with a lot of kind of learning, education, reading, podcasts, and as much education as I can kind of fit in alongside that as well. It's sort of weekends, evenings, sort of fitting into bits sort of during those days. So I think no 2 days are often the same. It's kind of fantastic to be able to sort of get involved with so many different things. So working, I've got a really, really great team working at Artisan, and we're working really well together to really kind of grow things. So it's a lot of variety, which is fantastic. But yeah, I would. The plan is to build the consultancy, and then have my great team to taking over more of the roles once we've got all of the systems and processes in place. Then ideally that'll free up some of my time again, that I can move that proportion back over to property in the future. But I think it's going to be another kind of good year or so before I can do that. But I'm still, it doesn't mean I want to wait that year until I'm doing any more property. I'll still keep property deals, investments, developments going alongside that. Yeah. It's just all about the leveraging it out to other people to help you with it, isn't it? To sort of help on the time side of things.
Yeah. So just looking back over the last sort of 15 years, mainly focusing on property, then what would be your sort of biggest success that you're proud of in those 15 years?
Property wise, I guess got a couple of things. I mean, one I suppose was that golf building from a new build construction side of things. We were already working for that college as Artisan, as their asbestos consultants, and I was chatting with the bursar there, and he was just talking about the property and the property side of things that I do, and he's like, "Well, we've got a golf course here, and we've got a parent that's donating funds for a golf simulator. So we need a building to put the golf simulator in." And he sort of basically grabbed a fag packet and sort of scribbled a box with a high bit and said, "Right, so we need a building that can fit the simulator in a high bit, and then we need a clubhouse and toilets and just changing. So could you give me a price for that?" So it was kind of very, very much a design and build. I guess didn't actually have to hand it over to an architectural firm to design that. We got a timber frame company involved, and I guess where I'd had at that stage the design experience through the design company that I had, and where we were already involved previously in planning applications, I thought I'd give it a go at kind of managing that, and that went really well. They loved the design of the building, and that was as I say, a great learning process. So that was certainly one, and I suppose probably the other is kind of the most recent project as well has been a really good success. So that's a commercial conversion of an industrial stroke office building to a terrace of 4 houses in Shedfield near Wickham. Not Sheffield, but normally when I mention it, everyone's like, "Sheffield? Where's Sheffield?" So no, it's not Sheffield. It's Shedfield, which is a little village just outside Wickham, sort of north of the M27 and north of Ferrum. And I mean, that came about. I think it kind of demonstrates what's kind of always mentioned in all of the networking and everything about the power of getting out there, talking about what you do, and just sort of meeting other people. And with that one, it was actually part of Artisan. I went to do a commercial EPC on the property, so that's sort of something else that we do as part of the company. And I just got chatting to John, the owner, who was retiring and selling the business. He'd owned the building for 20 years. and he had an engineering business in there in sort of petrochemical industry, and he sold the business about 7 years ago, but kept them in as a tenant. So he kept the building and also an adjacent cottage that he let out separately. But his plan was to end of 2018 when I met him sort of early December 2018 when I went and did that survey. His plan was just to sell up and retire, and that was it. But I had a chat with him, and I was just talking to him about, have you looked at whether you can, if there's any development opportunity in it. And he had actually had an architect look at a couple of schemes to demolish the building and one build a couple of smaller detached houses, or another option for a big sort of 5-6 bed detached. And he said, that it did kind of stack on paper, but there wasn't quite enough margin in there to go for it. So he decided against that, and sort of talking to him a bit more, kind of asked him whether he'd looked at keeping the existing building and doing a conversion and working with the existing building. And he sort of hadn't really considered that. And I think he said the architect at the time hadn't mentioned that as an option either. So we discussed like that more, and I think 4 or 5 weeks later we'd agreed a scheme and agreed a 50-50 JV to work together and develop that out. So we worked pretty quickly, and got kind of PD with staggered planning application in. So PD for converting the building into the houses, and changing that use to residential. But also a planning application staggered just behind that to add a couple of kind of first floor windows and just change the external element slightly. It had a pretty ugly building. I hope if John's watching this or watches it later, he doesn't mind me saying so. Sure, he won't. Typical kind of brick cube with sort of air vents sticking out. Had a parapet, so it's quite like a tall cube sort of building. Parapet which was sort of hiding a profile asbestos cement roof. So part of the planning application was to take all the roof off, take that down to plate level, put on a traditional pitch tiled roof, and then sort of convert that into a terrace of four 2-bed houses. We did that through all last year. Everything went really well, and we finished kind of just before Christmas, Christmas 19, and sort of going into obviously Brexit, Christmas, elections, it kind of wasn't the best time to sell houses. We did actually sell one coming out of that. So after the elections and everything, sort of after, and everything after Christmas, we did sell one, and then COVID hit, so everything plummeted then. But then I think about three weeks ago thereabouts, when the market picked up again, we sold all the other 3 in the space of 4 days, I think it was.
Excellent.
And sort of made a good profit off it, and so that's all gone really, really well. So I certainly think that's probably from of my own investment, investment development wise, that would be the biggest success. I mean, obviously the golf clubhouse was part of my building company, and doing that for someone else as a service rather than as my own investment.
Yeah, well done for getting them all sold now, because I know that you were going through challenges with getting it all finished off in lockdown, and worrying about, are you going to have to refinance them, and all of that sort of thing. So that's great. So,
yeah, something we're certainly considering. Obviously, plan B was to refinance and keep at least a couple of the units, which would have allowed us to pay back the development finance. But certainly wasn't a preferred option. It's semi-rural, so reasonably pricey area, so the yield wasn't very, very good. So it certainly made sense to sell them. It worked out really well. We were holding off. We were looking into buy-to-lets sort of through all the first sort of part of lockdown, but where all of the surveyors had stopped, obviously there weren't. I think there were only a couple of lender options. So the finance, the loan to value, and the rates weren't very, very good, where there were only a couple of options in the market. So we were holding out anyway, just to see what happened as when they got surveyors back into the field, and sort of new lenders came back into, or brought products back into the market. So we kind of that was just happening, and we were just on the verge of looking into to sort of getting going on applications for the buy-to-lets, and then we sold them. So it worked out well.
When will they complete?
Well, that we registered them with Help to Buy. So that kind of, and 3 of them are going through Help to Buy. One's just a standard sale. I think they're all first-time buyers or you know, quite early stage, sort of small. They're only 2 beds, so they're kind of good, great sort of size for first-time buyers or, you know, small family. But where those 3 are going through the buy-to-let process, it takes a little bit longer. And that was kind of, there was a little bit of a hold up as well with the Help to Buy agreement, which so with COVID, that kind of affected everything, kind of spilled over into their new year of when the Help to Buy agreement expired. So we had to go through the lawyers and get an extension put onto that, which was added a little bit of time. But hopefully now should sort of, I'm hoping they'll kind of all complete within the next 4 or 5 weeks. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, oh, well done. And the lesson there for me is, I'm sure it will be for others, is that tell everyone what you do.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, and I guess we're lucky. I mean, it's highlighted to me. I need to do more work to let all my team Artisan, you know about the kind of things that they can be talking to our clients with on surveys, because obviously, going out on surveys and to commercial properties and to buildings every day is perfect opportunity to have a chat with building owners and you know, just never know. Yeah,
absolutely. So that one's gone really well. It's had its ups and downs and its challenges, but overall it's been a great result.
Yeah.
What about any projects that have gone not so well? Any lessons learned? No.
I've not had any disasters, thankfully. Certainly lots of sort of small lessons within probably every project along the way. I guess there's a couple. I mean, the first one I did in 2005 was just a small flat in Western Lane in Southampton, and that was I had no experience whatsoever. So I can't quite remember my thought process behind going into it, because I must have taken the decision that I kind of wanted to. I was sort of interested in property from that stage, and I think I've always had an interest in buildings, architecture, old buildings, and sort of always seen it as something I kind of want to be involved with in some shape or form. And I looked at this flat that was a good deal at the time. So it was I think we got it. I think the rate was really, really, really low. The deposit was crazy low. I think it was 60 odd K, something like that. And the plan was just to do a basic refurb, so strip it out. It hadn't really been touched for quite a while, so it was pretty manky. It had old sort of timber frame windows, and you'd sort of poke it, and your finger just went straight through the whole timber frame. So it was all pretty dated. But yeah, the plan was to strip it all out. It had the older style bathroom with a separate toilet, so we took down a wall in between to make it into a more traditional style, bigger bathroom. And the actual project itself went fine. I did pretty much all of the work myself, other than a bit of electrics and things like that. And obviously, it's not something that I would do now. There's obviously that value in leveraging that out to your team. But I think that's actually a great thing to do early on. So anyone sort of starting out, I think getting that experience yourself and as much of it you can hands-on, then puts you in a much better position, knowing how everything works, to then be in a position to manage the other people that are doing it later on. So did it for a kind of a great price, and that all went well. But one thing that kind of cropped up as an issue was the lease length. So when we bought it, the lease wasn't mentioned at all. I think it was 60 odd years on the lease, and the solicitor didn't mention it. Obviously, I had no kind of training or networking or anything in property, so I didn't sort of really know anything about it either. The lender didn't mention it, so it wasn't an issue at all with the purchase. Everything went through without it being mentioned. And I think that's because at that time in 2005, it wasn't an issue for certain lenders of having that shorter lease length. But time-wise, unfortunately for us, and sort of during the few months that we were refurbing it, all of the lenders tightened their criteria, and that's when they changed their criteria on the lease length. So we didn't find that out until we sold it. So we actually sort of sold it pretty quickly and at a pretty good profit. But then that sale fell through because of the length of the lease and because those lenders had tightened up those criteria. So yeah, I think the lesson from that one would be kind of, actually, I mean, it's a bit unfortunate, I guess in that respect, kind of any amount of due diligence wouldn't necessarily have kind of brought that up, because it was just a change in lender criteria at the time. So that was unfortunate, but yeah, so that I think highlights the importance of education. I think, in kind of knowing more about every aspect of an investment and development. Would be another one. I think kind of I bought a property at auction in Woolston, sort of semi-commercial flat with it's a small shop with a maisonette sort of wrapped behind it and above it. And I think, again, possibly slightly kind of naively, where I sort of had the previous experience, I didn't sort of take on an architect and sort of any external advice on kind of what to do with it. So I thought I'm going to put in a planning application to split it into the residential element into 2 flats. So I wanted to keep the shop and change the split level maisonette into 2 1-bedroom flats. So I kind of doodled some sketches myself and sort of sent that over to my my designer, so to draw that up on the scale plans, put the planning application in myself. It was on development finance at the time from the auction purchase, and put the planning application in, and then Southampton Council sat on it for 15 weeks and then refused it on loss of family homes, which kind of didn't really, it wasn't exactly, if you look at family home as a 3-bed property with amenity space, and this was a 2-bed house as a residential element with a little bit of a yard and a garage. So it seems a bit of a wishy-washy criteria, and I guess I could have potentially appealed it. But after 15 weeks, and with it being sat on development finance, it would have been too risky to go to appeal and the lengthy process of appeal, and then have to look at development after that, do those works before refinancing and getting out of the development loan, or the bridging loan, sorry. So went to plan B, which was to refurb the whole thing. We split one of the big front bedrooms. Luckily, the bedrooms had 2 windows on kind of each elevation, and so it's quite easy to split one of the big bedrooms into 2, into actually kind of still a nice sized double bedroom and another single. So we added a bedroom, added an ensuite to the master bedroom, and did a general kind of refurb through and a bit of a reconfigure. Shop had a basement which was a bit unusable. You could see like a tide line of where it sort of flooded in the past, so we had that properly tanked. And took out the rickety ladder that was going down to it, and put in a proper staircase and turned that into like a little kitchen and storeroom and toilet sort of down there, and refurbed it. And yeah, actually it's worked out fine in that it's, we've not lost money, so it does cash flow, but I ended up with about sort of 60k locked in it, which ideally I would have pulled sort of more of that back out. So yeah, I think the lesson with that one would be kind of, utilize your power team and the professionals and and the architect, because I think from what I know now, and utilizing others' experience and skills, it would have done a lot better as a PD conversion. Just change the whole thing to resi, scrap the shop element, and yeah, probably split that into 2 decent flats and sell it. So I think that would have worked out better.
But you did have a couple of exits there, and that's important, isn't it, to have a few options? Yeah,
no, absolutely. It's I've always had that, at least one second exit. Definitely important. Ideally 2. Make sure you've got kind of just good sort of 2 to 3 good options that work on paper.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given in your sort of property investing experience?
I think really kind of I don't know whether it's kind of a specific, it's something I've been given as such at some point, but something certainly you kind of learn about and hear a lot of in property books, and also sort of business and mindset kind of books and learning, and all of the property meets. And I think it's the value of win-win situations. So I think in any deal, if you don't look at it just from what you can gain, but look at every party involved and turn it into kind of a win-win for everyone.
Okay. You've mentioned quite a lot about leverage. So in the early days, you might have done quite a lot of things yourself, but now you're recognising you use your team, you spend your time doing what you're best at, which is getting deals and evaluating the deals and that sort of thing.
Definitely, it's so important. Yeah. I know exactly that. I think I was, traditional E-Myth kind of thing, doing everything myself early days, and I think that's really common, isn't it, for people that think they're saving money by trying to do everything themselves. Whereas, yeah, if you focus on what you're good at and then work with your team and have work with the team that everyone's doing the thing that kind of fits well with them, that they've got, how their brain works, what experience they've got, then it just works so much better.
Is there a tool or a resource that you use on a regular, maybe daily basis in your property business that you'd recommend to others?
I mean, no kind of specific kind of online tools. I mean, for sourcing properties, it's kind of either, so far it's kind of been traditional routes, auctions. I've started talking to sources, and I've got kind of sources kind of looking for me. But again, I guess that's a leverage thing. I've not really got the time to sit down and utilize Land Insight or kind of any of those tools to spend time going through myself. I think my time's better spent elsewhere. I think, I suppose going back slightly to the merging into the last question as well, is one thing I kind of a useful, I guess this is a useful tool as well, but someone should tell me the value in doing is kind of mind mapping. So what's the, I always forget the name of the one that I used, but it's like, like the profile test.
Suzanne, is it? Who does the mind mapping?
It wasn't that one. Anyway.
Wealth Dynamics. No.
Sorry?
Wealth Dynamics?
Yes, well done, Sarah. Yeah. Wealth Dynamics. That's a really, really great tool. I mean, one, it's interesting to do it on yourself, to sort of really kind of learn more about how your mind works. And then also when you're, if you're working with a team, then it's important to, I guess as part of that, leverage and everyone doing their own thing, that everyone in the team is kind of, their brain works in kind of different ways, if you like. So you're kind of covering different aspects between you. So on my Wealth Dynamics, I came out kind of right top right on there, which is entrepreneurial, creative, star. So came out really kind of heavily into that sector. So I'm good at all of the kind of creative kind of stuff, but terrible. I wouldn't say I'm kind of bad at systems, processes, and that sort of thing, but my brain doesn't really like doing it. I'm not kind of one for systems, processes, spreadsheets. So if you're looking to build a good team, then you want someone that's then sort of down in the opposite end, that's good at systems and processes, someone that's a mechanic in the other end, everyone that just fits well together. So that's kind of a really great tool that I think anyone can use for themselves and working together with other people.
Yeah, that's
I think you're in a room of creator stars.
I'm trader. I've changed.
You were a supporter before, yeah.
You
can change over time, can't you? So I guess you I think you tend not to very much, but I think obviously as you kind of learn and develop over time, your kind of perception of different things sort of changes, maybe different experience. So you can drift around a little bit.
Yeah, I've done it 3 times, and I was supporter twice, and most recently trader. So it's interesting, isn't it, how we change as we
I did it a couple of years ago actually, so I might have to do it again now you say that, because I've I'm a bit of a sucker for educational books and kind of and podcasts, and anytime I'm out, I'm driving or out running, I'm sort of listening to an ebook or a podcast or something. So I think all of that bombardment of things, is it'd be interesting to see whether it has changed. My thought processes.
Let us know what it changes to if it does.
Yeah.
Have you got any podcasts that you'd recommend?
Podcast wise, so property wise, I mean, Rodcast is great, isn't it? So Rod's podcast is good on a property side of things. I think
Property Kickstarter.
Yeah, of course, property Kickstarter, it's another great one. And I think the one I started listening to recently from a sort of different sort of business, and this one kind of heavily more kind of investment from sort of stocks and shares kind of angle, but it's quite interesting, it's called We Follow Billionaires. So that's, I find that one quite interesting. So they'll kind of talk about the kind of the wider sort of ups and downs of the stock market, how it's influenced by the world, by economy, by what's happening with different businesses, different asset classes. Or interview various people, sort of obviously as they do on podcasts. But look at kind of Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway and kind of how what's kind of currently happening, and that's quite an interesting one, just for thinking about wider aspects of the world and what's happening.
Do you have a favorite book?
That's a hard one. I've read so many books. I mean, I've had ebooks. I've kind of, over the last 12 months, I've listened to 43 ebooks, just where I was like all the driving and everything. I've just started using Blinkist as well, so that's like it abbreviates the books into sort of 15-20 minutes kind of key things. So keen to those as well. I mean, obviously there's loads of great property ones, with lots you can learn in property, but I think the ones that have kind of influenced me the most have been the business finance, mindset kind of books. Probably of those, I'd say Entrepreneur Revolution by Daniel Priestley. It's a really good one. I mean, he's got 4 or 5 books. I think Key Person of Influence is probably one of his. It was his first, wasn't it? I think. But Entrepreneur Revolution, and in that he talks about the sort of changing sort of dynamics of the world, really. So it kind of focuses on how we're sort of shifting, or have shifted really, from the industrial revolution, industrial era, into the information age, and really how companies start really to succeed and keep on top of that need to be very dynamic, forward thinking, keeping on, looking at embracing technology and AI, have, and with that traditional model, which I think schools are still kind of teaching. I think that's kind of going to be a big kind of problem. I think we're already seeing it with the education system, is that the schools are still training an army of workers for the factory. Industrial revolution, you'd have like a business owner that had a factory, and they'd need an army of workers, and that's kind of what the education system was set up to produce. And and that's still the case. I think there's going to be a lot of discord with kids coming out that have kind of been kind of trained to be a worker working for someone else in a very kind of defined role, like in that traditional educate, work, retire kind of model that kind of isn't really going to work moving forward. So sort of in the book, he kind of talks a lot about the importance of kind of moving, with AI, there's going to be a lot of jobs that are replaced by AI. So to be successful as an individual or as a company, you need to learn to work together as a critical thinking, adaptive, entrepreneurial team, rather than a traditional kind of specific job role that you've traditionally kind of fit into. So that's a really great book.
You've got, talking about that, you've got a couple of young children there, and what you said about the education system, and how's that impacting on you and your family, and how you sort of steer them to become independent adults?
Yeah, it's hard with your own kids, isn't it? Kind of thing. It's a weird one because you're kind of there with them all the time, and just that constant battle to get them off phones and things like that. So with my son's 12, and you know, I do kind of do bits with him on, you know, trying to kind of educate him on assets and business, finance, and sort of some of that kind of stuff that they're not teaching in schools. And he, you know, we play cash flow. So that Rob Kiyosaki's like kind of cash flow game, and he's, you know, he kind of really gets it, and so it's great kind of doing that sort of stuff with them. But it is kind of, yeah, it's kind of in a way kind of more where it's kind of there all the time at home. It's sort of hard to keep that flow going and sort of think of new, you know, thinking like what if I don't want to kind of keep repeating the same things sort of things to him. So to come, you know, trying to put some structure to it to keep it, make it interesting for him is kind of difficult. But yeah, certainly something I'm trying to do and sort of molding my own kids into that. And it's something I'm kind of looking at longer kind of goals. It's something I'd love to kind of get involved in the future, would be some sort of educational movement or helping kids and young adults in that kind of business and finance and kind of life skills that they're not getting at the moment in the traditional school.
Yeah. Ladies, have you got any questions you want to ask Alex at the moment?
Yep.
Sarah, do you want to go first though? Because I know you've got to jump off in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that would be great if you don't mind. Alec, I know you have loads of hats, and so I was going to ask you briefly about two things. I know you're starting up a coffee business. We don't want to go too far down the coffee route because we're here to discuss property, but it might be interesting for our viewers if you just say a few minutes about what you're doing with that. It's quite exciting.
Okay, sure. I mean, it's kind of obviously, yeah, with all of the work on having to put an artisan, it's kind of very much a part-time thing at the moment. But I've got a business partner that I'm working with in coffee, so she's got experience already in the specialty kind of coffee arena, and I love coffee, so it's something that, you know, we're looking now for kind of things that I love and I'm passionate about. And just kind of thought of a bit of a potential niche model in specialty coffee market, but as on a sort of smaller scale, so not your traditional coffee shop size, but more a sort of smaller venue, high traffic areas, sort of focusing more on, and, you know, like your continental style kind of Barcelona, you know, good quality coffee, but kind of bustly markets, or so small, more kind of takeaway, that kind of thing. So yeah, no, that's something we're working on at the moment, but we want to sort of build, as well as the quality of the coffee, and looking at the sort of specialty market rather than just your general kind of bland, if you like, kind of coffee that you'll get in your bigger, more traditional franchise models. Kind of along that building a good kind of brand behind it that has kind of good ethics. So we want to kind of focus on working with local businesses, supporting local roasters, be as kind of environmentally kind of focused as we can. Fair trade as much as you can. It's difficult on the fair trade front with coffee, because obviously there's the worldwide sort of market in that, and systems and processes that are in place is sort of largely driven by, but certainly you can work with local roasters who have ties that can see the supply chain back to a specific farmer in Brazil or what have you, and they know that, you know, they can see that full chain of what they're paying for their beans is getting back to that farmer getting, you know, $10 a kilo compared to say $2 that they would get from the bigger commercial groups. So that's the plan. That's something that's kind of evolving at the moment. So we're kind of working on more that kind of the brand and the business model.
Okay, well, I guess we just have to watch this space, won't we? So that's exciting. And something else that's quite exciting, which I thought you may have thought about, is the new PD rights that are being talked about at the moment, going into airspace and other bits and pieces. Is that something that you think you might be focusing on going forward?
Absolutely. I mean, My focus going forward is, I mean, they say about the, you know, in a lot of the training, property training, they say focus on your kind of niche and your model, and the 70-20-10 kind of model. For me, I guess where I am kind of more creative and I have that different experience from different projects, I look at a broader view of looking at a site or a building and seeing what would be the best thing to do with that space. So whether it's commercial, resi, a mixture of the two, a conversion, a new build, a single unit, looking at kind of what's the most value that can be created, while looking at the win-win situations at the same time and factoring that into. So yeah, my overall kind of model is very broad. I want to build up a portfolio of commercial and resi alongside developments. So any kind of developments that I do moving forward, I'll, you know, it's going to be obviously what happens to that property is going to depend very much on the property itself, and whether I sell units or keep units will depend on the area and depend on yield if you keep it as a rental unit. But yeah, of course, I mean, anything that you can kind of capitalize on PD, whether it's converting agricultural sheds into resi under staggered sort of PD that kind of route, or yeah, of course, airspace. I think there's certainly going to be a lot of potential opportunity if you're creative with it and spot the right properties in the right places. Then yeah, definitely one to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We're looking forward to hearing more details on that.
Yeah.
When they come out. Yeah, thanks, Alec.
All right, thank you, Sarah.
Okay, going back to your coffee roasting. Now, a friend of mine's son actually has a specialist coffee roasting business.
Is that why you're in a coffee shop now?
Yeah, absolutely. I know, how funny. And I love coffee, so I'm happy to be a customer. And but actually now it's quite interesting hearing you talk, because you talk about being a creator and yet you seem to love all the steel stuff that you shouldn't like. You talk about loving the finance stuff, wanting to do more education on finance. Now, I understand that. I come from that background, but I'm a star and I hate it. And it's so unusual that you have strong steel energies being a creator. So it would be interesting to talk about wealth dynamics offline, because you were talking typically when you spoke about Daniel Priestley about the pestle stuff, you know, political factors, economic factors, social factors, technological factors, legal factors, and environmental factors, which is what businesses should be continually scanning and pivoting for. So Daniel's taken that model and written a book around that. And it's really interesting to see how you seem to love the steel stuff. Have you looked at
I think it's I think I love learning about it, because I know, you know, I think learning about everything and how, you know, the more I kind of read, listen, learn about all that stuff, the more everything meshes together and the more it helps me on that creative side. So everything that I'm doing with developing my business, obviously it's important to factor that in and be forward thinking and innovative as part of the business development. So I love learning about it. I'd say I certainly, you know, I enjoy it on the higher level, kind of, you know, the meaning and philosophy about it and kind of how it all works, not necessarily drilling down into the nitty gritty, which I guess is maybe more the steel stuff. So I like all of the concept and how it all knits together, and finding out about a wider variety of kind of aspects as possible, I think. So yeah, maybe that's the difference as to
understanding it so that you can manage it, really, is what you're saying. Yeah,
and I guess that comes back into what I was saying earlier about, you know, learning to everything on the tools with your first stages of developing a property. If you can do all that DIY, then you're in a better position to manage it. So I think that's the same with every aspect of business, isn't it? It's important to know at least what and why things are happening, not necessarily all the details of how.
No, that's, I mean, a good friend of ours uses the term being a practitioner, and that's exactly, and I think that's a great place to start from. I've got one other question for you, and it's really strange because Sarah, Sam and I escaped our former jobs to live a lifestyle type of business. You've gone the other way. You started out with a lifestyle business, but you're now telling us that, what you're looking to do is aggressively grow that business. Why the switch? Why moving away from, you know, a lifestyle business and living life on your terms?
I think it's partly been like a natural evolution. I think I kind of recognise I kind of love all of the entrepreneurial business side of managing the business. I think the biggest part of that has been all of the learning over the last couple of years. I mean, prior to changing that model and growing the business, I hadn't done really much in the way, you know, my books were more fiction, you know, up until then. And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, of course, you know, as everyone does, and that kind of really started to, like, I guess, change my mindset on, you know, with a lot of things. And then I just kind of went on a bender of educational reading and learning, and I think that's largely been what has driven that change to really make the most out of the business and the growth of the business. You know, the plan is still to have it as a lifestyle business, just a bigger one, so it gives me more flexibility, more freedom with my time in the future. You know, I'm certainly, I love kind of doing all of the creative stuff, the business stuff, and, you know, don't really have any ambitions to retire early. You know, I think I'm going to be certainly one of those ones that are carrying on doing stuff, getting involved and creating things, kind of hopefully into my well, I don't know whether I'm going to get 80s, 90s might be a bit ambitious, but especially at the moment where I got into a bit of a so I'm sure a lot of people might have developed some bad habits during lockdown, but mine has been, I think for me, like my own kind of quiet time is quite important to me. So when my wife and kids go to bed, I've started reading Game of Thrones at the moment. So I've sort of settled down with Game of Thrones, and something about Game of Thrones and sort of, you know, the kind of, I don't know whether it's kind of the kind of raw kind of energy of it, just makes you want to kind of eat. So I sort of sit there like bowl of peanuts and drinking brandy. And yeah, it's just not been the best habit to get into. I've sort of been quite good at getting up and doing exercise in the morning, but I think that the peanuts and brandy are fighting against that and winning, unfortunately.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Do we have anything? I'm just having a look. We've got a lot of people watching in, just saying hi. So if anyone's got any questions for you later on, would you be able to nip on and answer them? Is that okay?
Yeah,
so
cool.
Back to you then.
And Alec, how can people connect with you if they want to talk to you offline?
So phone me, email me. I've got the business websites. So yeah, I don't know. Did you want to put sort of details on?
We can add it into the Facebook page if you just remind us the name of the company and your website address.
Yeah, so that's just changing. So both I'll give you the new one because that's what it's going to be imminently. We're actually kind of launching the new website as part of our rebrand actually next week. So my email is alec@artisanenvironmental.co.uk.
I'm just making a note of that.
And then the website will be obviously the same, so www.artisanenvironmental.co.uk. And I mean, the company sort of social media, so LinkedIn, Facebook at the moment are still Artisan Surveyors, and there'll still be a kind of a heavy element of Artisan Surveyors as we kind of phase things sort of through into as part of the rebrand and the new company name.
And you're with Popular Demand this week, aren't you?
Sorry,
you're on
stereotyping's taking over.
Sorry, I'm going to mute myself.
You're on Popular Demand this week because you're also going to be on the Open Door on Saturday.
Yes, so yeah, so Richie's live on Saturday morning and with Property CEO and his Open Door. So yeah, if anyone wants to ask me any questions or find out more about the business, you know, wants to find out more about managing pollutants and asbestos kind of in any properties that they're buying or developing, you know, it's important. You can come unstuck, you know, if it's potentially an expensive thing to sort out if you get it wrong. So it's worth kind of knowing a little bit about. And there's also something I'll sort of talk more about on Saturday, that there's a tax relief that if you're developing or investing as a company, you can you can claim quite a chunky kind of tax relief that your accountant quite possibly won't know about, and it will kind of go unutilized. It's very underutilized, but quite a sort of significant kind of proportion of asbestos removal works and land contamination remedial works that you can claim back off your corporation tax.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for your time today, Alec. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Always interested to find out a little bit more about what you're up to. You're always so busy.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to, and obviously it's great having all of the partners in property, lives and all of the webinar, the web-based meets, but it'd be good to get back to some normality when we can.
On the subject of which, if anyone wants to tune into Partners in Property, I will be live shortly, so feel free to also ask me questions.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Alec. And
thank you, everyone.
Let's look forward to a face-to-face meeting shortly.
Definitely. All right. Take care. Have a good day.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.